You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like always, we have a special guest today. Her name is Debra Cohen. She is going to tell us everything about what she does. She is not just an indie artist. She's an author. She's a yoga teacher. And guess what? She's going to have fun because that's what it is. It's Friday. We had a busy week. I'm sure she has a busy week, and we're just going to have a good time on Friday. First and foremost, Debra, thank you for your time. How you doing?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. And are you in San Antonio?
Yes.
San Antonio?
Yes, hot.
Let's compare temperatures because I'm in Tampa Bay area.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, humid. It's humid. Yeah. But I've been to Chewy's in San Antonio a long time ago, and that was the highlight of my visit there, actually.
Man, you know it's hot when it's 93, 94, 84 at night. Man, the sun is gone and the heat is still there.
Yeah, you can fry an egg on the sidewalk in San Antonio, but you can actually do convection baking in Florida with the humidity. You know, the dough rises very well here in Florida.
Man, see, that's why I like having guests on who can just have fun because the audience is they're just enjoying this. So I appreciate you just being down to earth. So let's talk about you. Tell the audience a little bit about where you're from and how you got to what you're doing right now.
Well, you know what? I was just telling you off the air that I'm going to be the big 7-0 this year, and it's really hard to wrap my mind around that because, I mean, I come from a background in Boston where I was in a new wave band in the 80s, and the highlight of that experience was opening up for Joan Jett. And she's still touring, and I flunked the test, meaning the test of life. We're all on this planet for a test. More than one, actually. Well, I failed the rock band test because I enjoyed partying too much. And there was always free cocaine. And, you know, I got turned on to magnums of Dom Perignon. So, some people, I guess most people, when they are polluted and they get up at the mic and they think they sound good, but they don't. But anyway, the only music I was able to salvage from that experience in the 80s was a CD. It's entitled 80s by Debra Cohen. And I still remember Joan Jett sneakers, and I admire her for her. She's still going strong, and so is Cyndi Lauper and whoever else. I haven't heard from Bonnie Raitt lately. Heart's making a comeback. But I really love Led Zeppelin, and I grew up with Stevie Wonder, and won a bump contest when I was a teenager, if you know what that is, and really. I feel like I have had a lot of exposure with Motown to beat. So I became a musician because I love music, and it was an escape for me. I was one of those children that didn't have good parents and suffered some trauma without going into too much detail, but I am an open book if you're curious, and actually wrote a song about recovery. And then, of course, when I almost OD'd on drugs, I decided at that point that I didn't want to die, because people that are taking drugs, whether they realize it or not, are asking for help. And a lot of pain. It's nice to smoke pot once in a while. Not now. I don't smoke anymore because, I'm clean, man. If I'm going to walk the walk, I better be doing what I'm saying, Okay. So, I don't, and plus if you smoke pot and try to sing as a soprano, it doesn't really work very well. So I stopped doing the drugs when God saved me from drugs. And I actually cried out to the God that I never knew because I was brought up Catholic, and we know about God, but we don't know him personally in a relationship, and didn't know that was possible. But I cried out to him that day, and I said, if you let me live, I will serve you. And I couldn't believe I was saying that because, like, I don't even talk to God. He's the furthest thing from my mind. But when you're dying, it's a different story. So guess what? He let me live. So I started the recovery process seriously because I wanted to keep my word. I come from a generation of hippies, and once upon a time, you didn't need to sign all these contracts and everything, Your word was good enough. And I guess, at that time in the 70s, a handshake started to lose its authenticity and sincerity. But you still, if you knew the person and you said you want to do something, you did it. That's not the way it is today in my world. But so I said to God, okay, give me time to do this journey, this spiritual journey slowly. And fell in love. That's another segue. Fell in love with one of the guys in the band, and we decided together that I would get married at 28, and I think he was like a year older. We sold all our band equipment. We were touring in New England and decided to build a mountaintop home on 19 acres of land in Newfound Lake, New Hampshire. And that went down the tubes because I hadn't done my counseling for the trauma as a child. So if anybody's listening and have suffered trauma, I can tell you in hindsight, if you don't deal with it now, it'll come back later. And meaning we stuff things in our bodies, whether we do it for overeating, comfort food, or we escape, like I was a runaway teenager trying to run away from my parents, or, you stuff it actually physiologically in your body and it comes out as an adult, which is exactly what happened to me. This is how I can say this because it happened to me. I got into a car accident in, let's see, what was this, in maybe the late 80s. After the divorce, the big D, I'll skip over that part. And I had a flashback walking down the street. At the time, we wore Sony Walkmans. Does anybody know still what those are? But, earbuds kind of. And all of a sudden, I start having a flashback of being molested at 13 years old with all the feelings that came with it. And I'm like, what? I didn't remember that happened to me. I'm like, and it took me a while to figure out this really happened. I had stuffed it in my body so well, just kind of like people that are usually abused, they have disassociation. I have a friend that was molested and she said she could disassociate from her body while it was happening. She'd be up there on the ceiling and she'd watch what was going on to herself down below in the same room. It was this stuff happens. It's very weird because we're spiritual beings in a physical body. I call it an earth suit. So if you really want to know somebody, you look in their eyes because that's the window of the soul, the real person. But most of us don't want to go there because it's, you got to protect yourself. So you put on this facade, you dress up your earth suit. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So so I followed this spiritual journey and I made a commitment to God. And all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, after I was serious about it, I had moved to Nashville, Tennessee to try to make it as a singer-songwriter in the mid-90s. And I started dreaming music. I've never dreamed a song in my life. And I remember reading about Paul McCartney that said the words for Yesterday, he dreamed that song. And I'm not saying my song's as good as Yesterday, but if you want to listen to it, My Tainted Heart is what it's called. It's about me giving up the naughties and getting serious with God to an extent, But unfortunately, when you make that kind of a radical transformation, your friends are like, huh? Who are you? And, they don't want to talk about God. As a matter of fact, I got banned from my own family for talking about God. I'm not a Bible thumper, but, if you love somebody, don't you want to talk about him? It's not a secret like I'm doing here. I'm trying to, I don't want to turn people off. Don't change that channel now. I can really be funny if you want me to be. But anyway, so I have been on a quest since then. And since I started dreaming music, I've recorded them. I started out recording albums, but you have to pay engineers like buku bucks, and, at the time I decided to go back to college after the A&R guy in Nashville told me I was too old to get signed. And I'm like, oh my God, I was trying to hide my age. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I believe the guy, I hadn't heard the story about Michael Jordan that was told. Michael Jordan was told in high school that he wasn't good enough to play basketball professionally. I'm like, oh my God, if I wish I had heard that when I was trying to get out of my own hole and believe in myself, but I didn't believe in myself. I believe that A&R guy that said you're too old. So I packed up my bags and went back to college and graduated in 2005 with a teaching degree, teaching public high school. I'm like, what am I doing? This is the day job. Musicians really need your help. For those that are still listening, we depend on you for likes and shares and repostings and comments. It's all about the algorithms today. And if you read the news in Musicville, USA, wherever that may be, or worldwide, less and less musicians are making a living out doing performances. So we're all struggling as musicians. And if you're even listening to this, kudos to you. So anyway, I tried to make it as a teacher. And I did learn a lot. I learned about public speaking, but the kids, I didn't know anything about gangs. I'm like, the first time I stood before the classroom, my knees were knocking. I was kind of, what do you call it? Shy, maybe? Unless I got drunk, then I wasn't. But and I stood in front of the class with 35 kids, and this was teaching English as a second language. So they're like, half of them are in high school. They know second grade English, and I'm looking at them trying to break into my new job and my new career. And, I give them an assignment, an easy assignment. And then I noticed they're writing all over themselves, and they wear rosary beads around their necks. And I thought, as a former Catholic, look at him. He's so holy. But then I thought to myself, wait a minute, don't be dumb. You don't wear rosary beads around your neck. Those are what gangs do. Oh my God. So I asked Johnny, that's whatever his name was, I'll say Johnny, where's your homework, Johnny? I'm trying to have the authoritarian voice because I am the school teacher. And he says, I don't have it. And he slouched down in his chair, with his legs out straight, hanging off below his desk there, when they wore the underwear. No, you can see their underwear hanging out. Anyway, I'm like, I come from the hippie generation. I guess we had stuff hanging out. And so I said again, Johnny, trying to let him know I'm serious now. Johnny, where's your homework? And he said, F you. I'd never heard that in my life. I was appalled. I couldn't believe that he said that to me. I come from a generation in high school where if the teacher pointed to you walking down the hallway, you knew you were in trouble. And I got in trouble as a teenager for chewing gum in the hallways. Chewing gum! And here's this kid telling me to go F myself because he didn't do his homework. I'm like, oh my God. So I had 10 years of PTSD triggers while I was teaching. I actually lasted that long. But halfway through that, I still had my marbles, and I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do this for 30 years. There's no way. I'm a musician. What am I doing? I'm trying to make a living. So anyway, it's 2015 now, and teachers, they get asked back to if they are good, they get the gold stars and all that stuff. They pass all their examinations with the principal that spies on you to see if you're doing a good job or not. And my assistant principal said, Miss So-and-so, because I wasn't married back then, come into my office. It's time for your annual review. And I'm like, oh, gulp. So he closes the door and he says, I know what's wrong with you. And I thought, oh God, he's going to give me the gong, because that's not how you start an interview with a teacher if you want to keep them. He says, look, I've been watching you for a while and I know what your problem is, but I have some help for you. And I thought, I can take a breath. Yes, he's not going to fire me. He says, I want you to go get some antidepressants from your doctor. Just like a lot of my teachers in high school, they take them, and then I promise you, nothing will bother you. Nobody will rattle your cage. And so I just said to myself, I've already been down the drug route, and I know where it took me. I'm not going to take drugs to keep my job. I don't make enough money anyway. I had to have a second job as a school teacher. So y'all listening, if you're still listening, please be good to your children's teachers, because they spend so much time with your kids. You need to go to those parent-teacher conferences, which a lot of my parents did not because they didn't speak any English. I'm like, the kids run wild if you don't show that you care about what they're doing. So show up and take an interest. Go visit the teachers and, not just when they get a bad grade. That doesn't mean anything. Anyway, so anyway, there's more to the story, but where should I go with this?
No, you're good. And let me just jump right in and let people know that we are interviewing Debra today. Debra Cohen. Go to her website, DebraCohenmusic.com. Just do that real quick. But no, everything you say is very interesting. I love how you are just a natural storyteller. And I can see why you're creative. I think creatives just have that bug, that bite sense, like we just run with it. And it's perfect because I have a lot of questions, just in case you didn't know. But first, when you got into music, because I know that's something that you're definitely passionate about, because if you weren't, it wouldn't be anywhere on your website. What was it that inspired you to create music? Because I know you had all these things that kind of like some people didn't believe in some of the things you want to do in life, but you still did your thing. You also an author that we'll get into later. But when it comes to music, what inspired you to just create? What was that said, man, this is what I want to do?
Well, let's see. It was the Beatles. I'm going to blame it on the Beatles because I fell in love with Paul McCartney. And I truly believe for the longest time, now this is Beatlemania, when the Beatles from the UK first appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show with a black and white TV. And I had my Polaroid camera standing as a 12-year-old, whatever I was, with my camera to take pictures of John Lennon's profile because I couldn't make up my mind if I liked Paul more or John. I kept flip-flopping, That was a pattern early in life that I didn't notice about myself that continued into adult dating, but that's another story. So anyway, I just loved their music, just really got to my heart, maybe because I didn't have a healthy upbringing as a parent. So the music became my escape, my place for feeling love, what I thought love was. Unfortunately, I got the wrong idea of what love was. Because, it was the hippie generation. And like at that time, if you do a research on Google and you look up how many abortions they had in the 50s, and you look at a graph, I've got a picture of it. It's way down there near zero. But then when the hippie generation came out, now it's not my fault. This is just the way things happen. Every decade, that line climbs higher and higher and higher. And so there's something happening here, people. What's going on? Free love. What's going on? What's going on? Well, anyway, I'm getting into too much religion stuff here. I won't go there. It's just, I did all the things that I thought was going to make me find love, and I found it in the music. I found such elation and movement and dance and, like I mentioned, bump contests and grooving on a Sunday afternoon. And then it just gets better and better with music, and I just love to sing. I love it. Did you know that when you sing, I'm finding out right now, I'm doing this research, singing promotes your health. And some people say, gee, you don't look 70. And I'll say, that's because I sing. And they think I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm telling you right now, you have to find out what sounds are unique to you that only you have, and bring them into a singing circle. These are starting to become popular, in case you don't know what I'm talking about. People get together and there's a leader that introduces these simple songs, like even a Beatles song. And it's sort of like a sing-along, but instead of singing it like everybody else does, or like the leader does, that's a sing-along. Instead, you find the sounds within your body and contribute to that melody with your special sounds. And when you can do that in a safe circle where nobody says, oh, what kind of a sound is that? Because some people are so mean. I think most people are really mean. But anyway, also, when you're singing, it increases oxygen intake. So every tissue in your body gets oxygen, which you need to live, and it increases alertness. Everybody wants to be alert, right? And then keeps your brain healthy. So when you look at me, even though I'm pleasingly plump, I don't want to be, but I am. That's another story. I'll tell you sometime. It really brings life. So singing, being in a band, I'm not the greatest guitar player. And I knew that if I didn't learn on an expensive guitar way back then, I probably would have dropped it. So here's my Les Paul. If you had a video there, Shemaiah, people could see my guitar. And there would be people drooling right now because I'm holding a Model 55 Gibson Les Paul. That's the guitar I learned on. Yeah. So I do music because it's in me. I've got the music in me. A lot of my soul brothers and sisters, they know how to sing. And, you do it to cope. You do it for joy. You sing when you're sorry, but it's part of living. And if you don't find your soul voice, you're only walking around as a half of a person. You dig?
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the scene in Nashville, because you have obviously been there and the music scene there. What is the creative space like where you are? And have you ever been able to collab with other artists, or just at least hang out and learn from other people who are in the same creative space as you?
Well, keep in mind, you got to picture yourself. Let's do the time warp thing. You're going back to the 1994 to be exact. I had just moved down to Nashville from Maine, the state of Maine, when I was still trying to figure out what to do with myself, because I was a displaced musician. And I thought if I had the right job, I would be happy. So I was a postmaster for a while, and I lasted 3 years at that. And I said, I'm out of here. And so I thought, you know what, because I made a promise to God at that point, this was 1989, a year earlier, I thought, this is it. I'm done. People don't understand me. I feel like I'm spitting against the wind here. I'm going to join a convent. So I went and tried to become a nun. And during the interview, the Father Bob, he was like 300 pounds sitting, very stern, and he's looking at me, and he said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah. I've been kind of going to different churches, and I was noticing that like some denominations have female priests or pastors or whatever you call them. So how come Catholics don't have female priests? Dead silent. I heard a grunt. Oh, well, before you make a lifetime commitment at something you obviously know little about, I suggest you go home and read your Bible, little girl. He showed me to the front door and he asked me to leave. So I thought, screw this. Pardon the language if anybody has poly purebred hearing here. I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to go down there and make a blues band because I'm sick of everything. Nothing's right. Everything's terrible. Everything's awful. You know, those people that complain all the time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. I can't stand those kind of, not the person, but I used to be one of those. I'm like, you don't want to unload on your friends. That's not what friends are for. You go to a counselor if you want to keep digging the hole. I'm digging a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering where it will go. Do, 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 do. So I started a blues band and entered a contest. I'd only been in Nashville 7 months. Best unsigned blues band contest. And so there were 16 bands competing, and my band placed third. I thought, whoa, I'm on the high road. I'm on the high road. I'm just singing real sorry songs. That's when I used to like to listen to Mahalia Jackson. She could really get into my soul. So I thought, and Billie Holiday, right? Don't forget her. After that was over, it's like, what's next? I mean, more of the same. I'm not happy. People would say, man, you sound real seriously sad when you sing the blues. I'm like, yeah, you don't know. I can't stand myself. You know, I wake up in the morning. I'm like, what kind of mood are you going to be in today? Talking to myself, not out loud.
Yeah.
You do that when you're older.
Whatever works. I mean, you know.
What kind of mood you got to be in today? And it got worse and worse. Like I'd get it's like that lioness. What was the Peanuts TV show, Charlie and Peanuts, or the lioness? He's the one that dragging around the dirt with his blanket? You know, that was kind of me. I'm like, let's see, what am I going to be like today? So it was so bad. I really wanted to commit suicide, and I can make light of it now, but I didn't want to live. I'm like, I felt like I'd done everything I knew how to do. I didn't fit anywhere, and maybe somebody's listening and you feel like a misfit. Well, you know what? If you are, that means you've got a special call on your life, and you're going to have to be yourself or you'll never be happy. If you try to make everybody else happy, you'll never be happy. So get used to being alone. That's what I say. It's lonely at the top. Yes, it is. So I went to a doctor and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm depressed. So he gave me a clinical test for depression, pen and paper test. I took the test and I said, I can't wait. At this point, I'm ready to take some kind of drug because I'm just screwed up, depressed. It's a horrible, dark place to be. And the doctor said, I got your results in. I'm thinking, okay. He says, the good news is you're not depressed. I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm not depressed? I don't want to live. He said, I'm sorry, you don't test for depression. Well, what am I going to do? He says, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing wrong with you. And I thought, there is something wrong with a person if they want to die. So I had no place else to go. So I started church shopping. And I started going to Pentecostal churches and all kinds of different churches. As a matter of fact, for a while there, I was a praise and worship leader of a Cumberland Presbyterian church, which was mostly African-American people. And I was their song leader, and the piano player. Her feathers got ruffled around me, but, you know, I'm like, whatever, just let me sing to God, and you can sing to God. Leave it, you know, close your eyes. Sure. We're all the same color if you close your eyes.
That's fun.
So anyway, yeah, so I went, and then of course I started dreaming the music, like I said, and I recorded a CD. I started collaborating with a lot of session players. You know, you can if you know who's recording an album, you can find out and hang around at the recording studio and wait for the musicians to finish recording for the VIP famous singer, and then offer them, go up and talk to the musicians, which I did, offer them a price and ask them to cut a couple tracks for a song that you've happened to write. So I got some really good music tracks down there, which is great. But as far as the blues scene, I don't know. It's not really the place for blues. It's more like, who was that guy? Garth Brooks. He got discovered down there in the Bluebird Cafe. So I wasn't country enough for them. And then the A&R guy said, we really like your music, because at this time it was Christian rock, I guess you'd say. And so the A&R guy wanted to pitch my music to another singer. Like, first he said, how about Twyla Paris? And I'm like, Twyla Paris, she's kind of wimpy. I'm not Twyla Paris. I'm thinking to myself, he's looking at through a Rolodex. You guys listening probably don't even know what it is. A paper file. He's twirling his Rolodex, not even looking at me. I'm like, how rude. If you talk to people and you don't even look them in the face and the eyes, you need to learn how to do that, because, it's a lost art. And so then he twirls a little bit longer and he says, how about Margaret Becker? And I'm like, well, you're getting closer to the genre, but why is he asking if somebody else can sing my music? And I finally get up the courage to say, what about me? What about me? I mean, my album is what brought me here, and you're asking me to pitch my music to somebody that's already signed. I'm here to get signed. And he said, oh, you don't understand it, Miss So-and-so. It takes years of grooming before anybody will sign you. And I said, well, here I am. I gave up my job at the post office. I moved down here from Maine, and here I am. And he hadn't looked at me full face until this point when I asked him that question. Then he turned a quarter turn in his chair. And he looks at me and he says, nobody's going to sign you. You're too old. Oh, God. Oh, I can't believe I didn't have enough self-confidence not to buy the lie. So if people say don't do it and it's in your heart and it's a good thing, keep doing it until you can make a living at it, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm still trying to do that.
Well, once again, you listen to Refocus Radio, talking to our special guest today, Debra Cohen. Go to her website, DebraCohenMusic.com. Believe it or not, we literally are flat out of time. So I might have to have you come back on for a part 2. Because, I feel like good. We didn't dive into your writing, being an author and books and stuff, so we're going to have to bring you back on. So first and foremost, someone listens right now, what's the best way they can keep in touch with you online?
Yes. Online, I guess it would be to go to my website. And don't forget to spell it correctly, people. The school teacher talking here. Debra Cohen, Cohen, music.com. And there you can sign up for my newsletter, and there you can write comments, and I'll answer you because I get all of the newsletter requests. And that's the best way to reach me.
Well, once again, we'll have to bring you back on so we can get part 2 of the whole story, because this was probably like a teaser. So, like always, Debra wants to say thank you for your time.
Yes, it was a lot of fun, Shemaya.